What is up, everyone? It's the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial. So we're in Texas this week. PGA is back finally. So yeah, just gonna get right into the breakdown because we got a lot of golfers on my sheet. I took a lot out, but it's a big field. A lot of players have been invited. The way it works, if you're unfamiliar, is bold is good, blue is a guy that I have kind of mixed feelings on. Will maybe sprinkle if I was doing 150 max. I'm personally not, so I probably won't have much of those guys. Um, Red is just a fade for me. I mean, if they burn me, they burn me, but you've got to take stands. You can't play everyone, as much as some content may lead you to believe that you can. The way that if you've got four guys on a podcast and everyone has at least one positive take on like every player, then that's not as helpful. So that's kind of where I'm standing on that. I mean, this form I have it sorted with tournament names. That way, if you're looking at a particular tournament for results, you can look there. It's not week by week. I mean, I don't have the Euro tournaments in, but um, you know, it's tough to really, say how much you want to weigh anything, as far as form goes, as it's been, multiple months since we've had golf. But I mean, if a guy was, I mean, you could look at it two ways. You could look at it as if, a guy was overperforming his long-term baseline, for this, season suspension. Okay, that probably means he's overpriced right now compared to his long-term talent. The other way you could look at that is he found something this year that is good and will continue. Um, it's hard to say what the truth. I mean, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Um, you see guys go on hot streaks all the time, but maybe an 8 week, you know, hot streak isn't maybe a hot streak. Maybe that's their new game, and their long-term stats won't adjust to that very quickly. So it's kind of hard to take those things into account. What we do have is a bunch of course history. I don't have as much as I used to, as Smart Golf Bet sheets are now no longer free. Any content I have is free or sourced from somewhere that is free. So uh, this is what I've got. This is what I'm working with. If you want, stats to back this stuff up, you can go over to Fantasy National and pay for it. But I personally don't. And so, yeah, let's go golfer by golfer here. I did ownership estimations, just kind of what I'm seeing from people, what I'm hearing from people, um, what I think. Um, this would be in like a large GPP, maybe the Millie Maker. You could say this would be good ownership for. Cash games, I'm going to highlight guys that I think are going to be very popular in cash. And you could fade them in cash if you want. My strategy is generally to play like four guys that I think are going to be really popular in cash for good reason. If I don't agree with them, then I won't play them. So we'll get into it. Rory at the top. He was on an absolute tear to start the year and up all the way until this whole quarantine situation. Just a string of top fives. That's and there's a reason he's the number one ranked golfer in the world right now, and it's because of those results. Uh, the only downside you can really say is that he hasn't played this tournament before, and as with any of these guys, you don't know exactly how much they've been working during the break. You can say that you saw a guy working hard on Instagram, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, you saw like a 5 second clip. It just doesn't mean much to me, personally. I mean, these guys are all professional golfers. This is what they do. They go and practice. You're not gonna if you're doing a basketball game, you're not going to be like, oh well, I think you know James Harden put in more work in the off season than Giannis did. So you're comparing the elite of the elite on things that you don't know about, and I mean that could give leverage opportunities, but kind of depends. But yeah, Rory, I mean, he's fine. He's going to be popular because he's the number one ranked golfer in the world. He's pretty easy to fit this week with the value in the 7K range. So I'll probably just try to match, go around like 15 to 20%. I'm probably going to run like 20 to 40 lineups. Probably try to max like the $3.20 max and the $2.20 max, and then play any single entry and 3 max stuff I can. I'll probably play a cash lineup. I'm not sure what yet, but I mean, Rory wouldn't be in it. He's a GPP guy for me. Um, and if you're going there, you can mix and match with some lower owned guys. Because if you play Rory, I think you kind of limit yourself in terms of popular builds. But we'll get into that too. Rom is basically in the same boat as Rory for me. Rom could be a little more owned based on the fact that he has a fifth place, a second place. Here, I mean, he does have a miscut. The thing is, like, it's hard to discount Rory for not having course history and then, like, give, Rom one of the top 3 players in the world, in my opinion. Uh, you know, it's hard to give him, like, a boost for having course history that makes sense for a top 3 player in the world. Like it's hard to make that judgment call. So I'm not really gonna weigh Rom's course history as like, oh, he's got a second place here, so he's the play. Um, it doesn't really work like that in my opinion. So I like Rory and Rom pretty much equally. Here, I mean that $800 savings does matter if you want to mess with lineups. You could even, if you're playing the Millie Maker, you could build a lineup that fits Rory but play Rom. I think that's a lot of leverage there because, people might be like, oh, I have 11-8. Um, Let me just play Rory. Well, if Rom beats Rory or just outscores him on DraftKings, like you're probably in a great spot there as long as the rest of your lineup comes through. Um, I mean, I'm not doing that because I'm not playing the Millie Maker. Um, but that I think makes a lot of sense if you are. JT, kind of like in a little dead zone here between Rom and Bryson, but also above Webb, who's going to be wild popular. But JT kind of goes along the same lines as Rory and Rom, one of the top 3 players in the world in my opinion. He makes a lot of sense here. Also, no course history. He's been a little bit more boom bust this year. I mean, a couple missed cuts, but also a whole, rack of top fives, top tens. Um, I like JT this week. I'm not going to fault you for playing him. He probably falls a little bit below Rom and Rory on my radar. But I mean, I like him as a player. He's obviously elite. There's not too much to separate these guys, other than narratives and such. Bryson was on a tear before the quarantine situation, the suspension. Um, he was like a cash game lock for me between the Genesis, WGC, and the Arnold Palmer. I mean, whatever he's doing right now seems to be working. He's one of these guys that you actually might be able to put the narrative to and say that, the time off has been good for him. He gets even more time to refine what he was working on before. Um, and he's just one of those guys that's going to grind and grind. But the course history is worrisome. I mean, I would say that he's in the best form of his career right now. So maybe you can discount this course history, but to not even see a glimpse of it from someone that's been touted highly for so long is a little bit concerning here. His new style of like bomb and gouge probably isn't the best for this course because it's tight and there won't be fans to act as semi backstops. Funny story. When I was doing Shotling at Genesis on hole 8, actually, I wasn't on hole 8. My buddy was on hole 8. Um, the Bryson was hitting like a short pitch and like bladed it, and it hit the back of my friend's chair that he was sitting in behind the green to do the shot link stuff. Hit the back of the chair very loudly, and then just right down, right in front of the green. I mean, we even said it then, like if that chair isn't there, if I mean the chair's probably going to be there, right? Because there's still shot link and stuff going on this week, as far as I know. But like, if that stuff isn't there, he's like 30 yards past the green for his chip shot. Instead, he is like 5 yards. I mean, that's just what I mean about the fans not being there this week. I mean, you could say it would mess with their sight lines maybe, but it's hard to quantify or really weigh into how any of that means. I'm recording this, by the way, and I don't know if you can see the spreadsheet. I'm trying a new method of recording this, so if you can't see the spreadsheet, I will just post it with the video. Um, but obviously, I will check at the end and watch it and see if I can see the spreadsheet. But yeah, after Bryson, Webb. I mean, talk about shock. This guy's gonna be so owned this week. Like, it's not gonna be funny. Um, this is the guy where, like, if he misses the cut, everyone is going to tilt very hard because you're paying a premium price tag for a guy that, let's be honest, you're not really used to paying a premium price tag for. Webb is usually priced below Brooks, Xander, DJ, maybe some Ricky sometimes. Like, he's usually not there. I would have expected him to be like 9,400 coming into this week. But I think DK has really done a good job here. But he's still going to be wildly popular, and that is always a concern. The problem that I see here is that he fits this course really well. Like everyone's analysis of why Webb is a good play makes a lot of sense. And I mean, when you consider what Webb has done with his game, 2017, 2016, top five finishes. I mean, that's Rahm's course history discounted by 1,200. Obviously, these aren't the same players, but I mean, Webb has been elite. I mean, that extra, I think, difference in player is the price. Like, I think that's real, like, really accurate in terms of the difference in price between those two players. But, like, what I'm going to say about the course history, like, Webb wasn't as elite back then and still had those results. Like he wasn't, a lights out putter back then. He was actually pretty terrible at putting. He's really brought that around lately. Uh, Also has that win at the Waste Management, so like clearly his game was in a good spot. Mexico, that's not a good course for him, really. Like that's a bomber track, as you can see by Bryson, JT, Rahm, and Rory up at the top with elite course history or elite results there recently. Um, that's just not really a Webb course. He's also coming off that win, so like maybe not as, crucial for him right then. But yeah, I mean Webb I think makes sense as chalk this week. Brooks has question marks because I mean sure he has that second place in 2018, but like he was not good before the break. And sure he was injured and he probably had time to recover, but he didn't play competitive golf in that time where you can look to and be like, okay, he's back at the elite level. And you're paying a price tag that you need him to finish at an elite place. And I think Webb has a better chance of doing that this week. So does everyone else. And Brooks shows up, I mean, in spots where everyone's eyes are on it. So I do think that there's merit to Brooks. I just personally am not going there. Xander, again, same kind of guy. I mean, you could be fine. I mean, look at his results before the break weren't outstanding. It was just that he wasn't burning people like 24th, 14th, 23rd, 16th. Like, those are great. That's fine. But what you really want is top 10s, top 20s, top 15s. And Xander's not really delivering, high upside right so far this year. So Also has not great course history here. Also, I mean, Brees is still a very like developing player, but at this price tag again, like I'll go with steady Webb and ride that. Um, DJ, I'm off him right now. It's the same kind of deal as Xander, where he just hasn't been like as elite as these other guys lately. But DJ has more name value than Xander, so he could be a little. I mean, I don't think he's going to be his own because of the way the industry works, but um, I'm just not going there myself. Ricky, same kind of deal. Ricky doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would have been grinding hard on his game during the break. Um, I don't know. That's his persona. Popular, but like hasn't really flashed the upside this year. Often on course history and his two starts that I have here, like you could go there as leverage off of in this range between Webb and Sungjae is going to be low owned and talented. So you could go there if you want. Personally, I'm not just because I just don't think Ricky hangs with these guys anymore. Like, just don't think it happens. Sungjae, if there's anyone that I could bet on to like, if there was a hypothetical like blind odds for guy who spent most time on range during break, Sungjae would be like he might have a minus next to his name if you made those odds. Like that's how hard this guy works. That's how much this guy plays. I was a little more comfortable plugging and playing him when he was in the 8K range. Now that he's 9,300 and above some of these other guys like Reed, Morikawa, Rose, Leishman, Finau, Woodland, Kuchar, like when you put him above those guys, it's a little bit of more of a question mark. Sure, he was on an absolute heater before the break with a first and a third at Honda and API. I mean, those are good. A lot of top 40 results this season. One miscut at Genesis. I'll even give him a pass for that. I think that was a miscut on the number because I had him that week and I was there. Um, so yeah, I like Sunday this week. Personally, I'm not landing on him that much. He makes a good second piece to a lineup, in my opinion. Like, I think you want to play one of these higher price guys with him, but at the same time, like, I feel like I can get the same kind of quality player as Sungjae for like $600 cheaper. So it's kind of tough. Like, he's going to be popular and he makes sense, but I'm like kind of torn as to use him as like the first player in a lineup that's very balanced or the second player in a lineup that's not so balanced. So it's kind of tough there. Um, Reed, I never know what to do with Patrick Reed. He is probably a great GPP play. Not necessarily. I don't think Patrick Reed is like ever a cash play at this point because this guy just tilts you, and he tilts you extra hard when he doesn't do well because you probably are like biased against him. So when you do trust him and then he kind of screws you, you're like, well, you know, fuck this guy. Um, so I don't know. I could play him in tournaments. That's fine. He's not going to be. I actually think he will be pretty popular. He won't be as popular as like Sungjae, Morikawa, and Webb, but I think there's a lot of merit to still playing him. Um, you could go overweight on Reed compared to like Sungjae and Morikawa if you wanted to do that. That's a way to be different. Um, Morikawa is an elite player. Like you can't argue with these results. He's been scorching hot. His approach game is sick. His driving, he hits fairways and he's moderately long. That's good. He struggles around the green and putting. And bad putters are fine if they're really, really good with their irons, because obviously the closer you are to the hole, the less detrimental it is when you aren't a great putter. It only kind of limits your upside. It doesn't really hurt your floor so much. So for him, like, great player, elite, no course history here, bit concerning, but I'm also he doesn't have course history like any of these places where he's crushing it. So like that's fine, man. Like just roll with him. I think if you want to not play well in cash, I think you can play Sungjae or Morikawa as like the first piece in your lineup and go like super balanced. I don't necessarily think that that's the way I'm going to go. Um, Mainly because I think there's other guys a little bit below here that we can talk about that make sense in cash too. But you could like instead of playing Webb and a Finau, you could play like a Sungjae and Morikawa in cash, and I think that makes sense. Rose is going to be a fade for me. I mean, sure, he's back to TaylorMade clubs apparently instead of his Hanma, but I'm just not going to go there. If Justin Rose burns me, I mean, if there's a prop on how much sponsor money you earned, how much how many sponsored posts you could put up during the suspension, that's where my money would be on Rose. But for this actual golf tournament, I'm not going there. Leishman makes a lot of sense, I think. He's just one of these guys who is like always underrated, always flies under the radar. But now we're paying an elite price tag for him, and I don't know. I mean, Leishman's one of these guys where like he could have been on the range this whole time. Like nobody would know because nobody follows this guy on Instagram. He's not a huge personality. Like he's a great guy. We know that from his struggles with his wife, etc. But like him, Woodland, and Finau are like very much the same player to me in terms of their skill level and their upside and their like semi volatility. Like they have a lot of very good results, but they don't tend to like win. I think Leishman's actually the most proficient winner out of this group of three, which I think gives him a little bit of upside there. It's just tough for me to go with Leishman when like Finau's right there and Woodland's right there. Like it's just really tough. I mean, I think Leishman is great leverage off those guys, though. I mean, he has a first and a runner-up in his last four tournaments played. I mean, he won the Farmers when I was there, and then he got second at the Arnold Palmer. And in the meantime, two 40th place finishes is fine. Um, he gets quite wayward off the tee. I mean, I was shocked to see his stats when he won the Farmers because his final round was a spray fest, and somehow he just kept pulling it together. But I'm personally just not going there. Um, Woodland, I like a lot. Woodland on a less than driver course is always a good thing. He can take some of that off the tee. He can hit that stinger that we all like to make googly eyes over. He hits that stinger. He hits the 3-wood. He's great with all of his irons throughout the bag. His short game is not ideal. um, Man, the Farmers. He crushed me at the Farmers. I was following him for like 5 holes, and it's that hole where he made like I want to say he made a triple. He had an approach from the middle of the fairway, like 120 out or something, and like plugged it in a bunker, flew the green on the bunker shot, like chipped back like 20 feet away, and then two putted. And I had to like go to the other side of the course. Like I couldn't even be near that anymore. That was rough. So Woodland, he's still working his way back into my good graces. Luckily, I still made profit that week. But yeah, Woodland. Yeah, we'll be fine. I think with Gary this week. Finau, much in the same vein. Not in the best form leading up to the suspension, but also you look back, second at the Waste Management, where he had notoriously poor course history despite being, by all measures, a great course fit. Um, Farmers, same deal. Bomber course did really well. American Express, weird tournament, did really well there. Genesis, I expected more, but that's fine. API didn't strike me as like the best Tony Finau track, and um, great course history here. So I think he's another one of these guys where if you give him a less than driver course, he's a little bit more accurate with 3-wood, but still longer than most of these other guys that are also hitting 3-wood. So like, still has that advantage. Um, I really like Finau here. He has a lot of good finishes here throughout his career, where he's I think he's like still somewhat developing as a player. I think he has really elite upside. He just has yet to find it. So I like Finau a lot here. Lowry, just kind of like an unknown who will be super low owned, but I'm not going there myself. Kuchar, I love Kuchar here. I think he's going to be mildly popular. Probably not as much as Finau, but also around the range of Scheffler. Like, what has Scotty Scheffler really done in his career to make you think that Matt Kuchar is a worse player than him? I don't know. Kuchar really strong results and has that course history to boot. You know, if it's an accuracy course where you can play your second shots and kind of just make a lot of pars and get some birdies along the way and avoid the bogeys. Like Kuchar's your guy, and I really like Kuchar here. Like if I'm playing cash, I'm playing Kuchar over Scheffler if I have that decision to make. But I think Scheffler is a great tournament play as well. Um, it sounds like I discounted Scheffler before. Kind of did, but it's just more of like a long-term thing. Scheffler's like really elite results came earlier in the season. And then you had like two missed cuts, Waste Management and Farmers, two places where I would have expected him to like play really well just based on his game. But Genesis, Mexico, and API really showed that yeah he is this quality player. It wasn't just like a little run in the fall. So I like Scheffler quite a bit here. If I'm deciding between these two guys, like it's tough. I think they'll be roughly the same in terms of ownership. Maybe I think Scheffler might be a little more popular because he's like sexy name. Kuchar has kind of like a boring name. Jason Day's a huge fade for me. I just can't ever trust this guy. The upside is there at times, but honestly, mostly at courses where like he's shown to have success, like Pebble and Torrey. Like Day just this guy kills me, man. I can't trust this guy. I can't play him. Fitz, I like the way Fitz sets up for this course a lot. I'm not sure he has the um, most ownership this week, so I think he's a good tournament play here in this range. Kind of a dead zone, in my opinion, between Scheffler, Kuchar, and like Berger Knock his English. Kind of a dead zone there, except for our boy Spieth. Fitz sets up really well here. I think he's fine in all formats. If I'm playing cash, though, I'm probably trying to get a little more for Scheffler or Kuchar, just based on familiarity with the course and more sort of like American form. Um, Not having to deal with like international travel right now, I think is probably a benefit. So like, yeah, I love Fitz as a player. I think he's a great guy to have on your lineups, but not really a cash play for me. Usti is a fade for me. I just another guy like Usti and Day. Like if you want to play the ultimate tilt potential tournament lineups, like you play Day, Usti, and Reed like in a lineup. Just watch the world burn. But that's personally not what I'm going to be doing. I just don't want to play Usti again. He does have that fifth place here to lean on if you want to do that, but he didn't really show too much leading up to the suspension to make me want to really put my trust in him. Spieth, the only thing that Spieth is conflicting. Like I want to play him this week just so if he sucks, I can just go back to what I was doing before and just pretending he doesn't exist. Um, so, and now we have like a reasonable price tag on him. He's not priced near Finau or Kuchar or those guys. Like he's probably still a little bit overpriced, honestly, for his recent results. But the course history here is absolutely elite. Like he loves this place. Clearly, I think this place gives him a little bit of it takes away pressure to like try to hit drivers so much, and he's still elite like around and on the green. So like especially when there's no fans to act as like semi backstops here, if that even needs to happen, like I think Spieth has a benefit in that realm. Of course, familiarity is something that he's obviously got. Good vibes here is something he's got. Only concerns are like he's in a featured group. Might be a little more pressure than he wants coming back here. Other concern would be that the results leading up to the break were pretty poor. obviously. But Pebble, that ninth place, I don't have too much information on how that result was achieved or what his course history is at Pebble. But I think his Pebble history is good, if I remember correctly. Like, Pebble's one of those courses where a lot of these guys that tend to do well there consistently. They're used to that format of the tournament with the course rotation, etc. So personally, yeah, I'm going to be playing Speed this week. Definitely not a cash play. Never a cash play, in my opinion, but I think you will want him on some tournament lineups just because he has that upside. And yeah, it's kind of a cop out, but like he's only missed one out of his last five cuts, and the other results weren't great. But like at least he's playing the freaking weekend. Like, and you know, Spieth is going to make birdies and bogeys with the way that he's been playing recently. So like if he's making birdies and bogeys, that's better than making pars for fantasy scoring. So like not all results are created equal here. Hovland, I'm just going to fade. He has not been super impressive of late. Sneds, great results here overall, but I'm personally not going there myself. Just not a sexy play. Berger was on a tear before the break. I'd like to think that he's continuing to find that now that he's like back to being fully healthy. Last year he was like kind of injured the whole year, so I'll take Berger at this price tag all day. I think he will be very popular, but I'm playing him anyway. Kevin Na, back-to-back top fives at this course. His string of good results here dates back past 2015. This course fits him really well. Put the ball in the fairway, put the ball in the green, and do the rest from there. I really like Kevin Na here this week. Pretty volatile in his last 6 tournaments. We've got 2 missed cuts and 4 top 40s with 3 top 20s in there. So I'm not sure about Na as a cash play. I can see it just because of his results at this course. Yeah, I can see Na as a cash play. I can see Berger as a cash play as well. Excuse me, I haven't talked this much in a long time. Kisner also has a win at this course. The results in the last 2 years are a bit concerning. Kiz is a guy that tends to do well at his courses. Like he has his game and he plays his game. I'm not really sold on Kisner as a cash play, but I think he makes sense in tournaments, and I think he will be a little lower owned than Na, Berger, and English. English is another one of these guys. He's like Berger. Used to be highly touted. Good course history here. Was on a hot streak before the break, making a lot of cuts. 9th at API, 17th at Honda, 16th at the Waste Management. I think English makes a really high degree of sense here. I think he will be a cash play for me. Dahmen was on a little bit of a tear before the break too. I'm personally just not going there this week. I don't know. I think he would be very low owned, but I personally like Max Homa way more. Homa showed better results for longer than Dahmen did before the break. Homa, I think, is the kind of guy that can make more improvements than Dahmen right now. So I like Homa a lot here. I mean, he really actually projects for low ownership despite basically being Harris English before the break. Like, I don't really see the difference between these two guys, but you're getting an ownership discount and an odds discount on Homa. Like, I don't hate Homa as like a bet to win. It sounds crazy, but I'm going there. Horschel 80-1 is, I think, a strong play at 7,400 as well. Potentially a cash play there. I like Horschel more over Byung-Hun An quite a bit. On really good with his irons and ball striking, but I think this course requires really a full game test. I think Billy Horschel actually on one of the best players around the green too, which is interesting. But I'm just not really like sold on him as an elite player week to week. I think Horschel has that upside more. So I like Horschel here over Byung-Hun An. If I'm playing cash, I'm playing Horschel. I don't know if I'm playing any of these guys in cash, if I'm being straight honest with you. Uh, at 7,400, these guys will be popular, but I like them more in tournaments. Neiman, interesting play here. Really good results here the last 2 years, but really poor form like leading up to this tournament. Um, I think I'm gonna fade and wait to see where we're at with Neiman. Neiman's been like a very hot and cold player throughout his career so far, so if he's going to be semi-popular, which I think he will be because of that course history, and people can look at those missed cuts and say, "Oh, those were 3 months ago." I think I'm personally just going to like stay away and kind of wait and see there. Um, Palmer, everyone's going to be on Palmer this week because he's a member here. Like this is his home course. Like we get this narrative all the time with these guys. It's their home course, or they play here all the time, or they're a member, and like it doesn't really pan out that often. Like I mean, it just doesn't pan out all that often. I think Palmer may have an edge here this week because he's used to playing this course without fans, and there won't be fans. Like, I think that might be the angle you can take, but he's been very volatile here. Like, I don't know how you can trust this guy in a cash game with the results that he's had here and even the results he's had lately. That result of Genesis may be a little inflated because of his, like, what was an 11 on one hole, like trying to get out of the bunker. He just couldn't get out. Um, so there's that. But personally, like that's a tournament play for me, and even then, I think I like Horschel way more. Uh, Horschel's my favorite play at 7,400. Let me just say that and kind of move on. Wolf, I'm not going to be playing. I think he needs to refine the game a little bit first. Hadwin makes sense here as like an accuracy guy. Personally, I'm just not going to be going there. I don't see the upside. Answer, I think, is a better player than Hadwin, and um, I've seen a lot of him playing over the break. I know he got second in the tournament recently, and I don't want to buy into that narrative too much, but like I think Answer has more upside than a guy like Hadwin does. So I'll play some Answer here. I think he makes sense as a potential cash play. Um, there's only one guy lower than